In the early days of Smash Ultimate, Simon was actually considered a prominent character back in the day, which is kind of strange considering he also has some of the most meme aspects of the character that are pretty entangled with just the culture of the character. Like, for example, just use the B button meme existed for Richter and Simon because their special moves are a big part of their moveset. And it's kind of crazy to see how much they've fallen off of the map just in general viability. Like, you're not going to really use Simon or Richter anymore, especially after all these DLC characters that came out. I mean, especially since the memes are so entangled with the character design behind Simon and Ritcher. I mean, we've all seen these Simon and Richter main controller mapping memes. That stuff aside, it really puts into perspective how much these characters have fallen off. I mean, really, they were actually considered at least a prominent characters in the meta in the early days of Smash Ultimate, but they fell off quite a bit, especially when DLC characters were introduced. So why is that the case? What's with Simon and Richter, and why are they heavily outclassed now? Any Simon and Richter mains in chat, let's use the B button, okay? Let's spam the special moves. Now, Simon as a character is a heavyweight character that's very good at projectile zoning, but he's burdened by poor mobility and a pretty awful recovery. Both these characters being ranked at 79th on the most recent tier list towards the end at the D tier, making them the lowest ranked newcomers in the game. And the Belmonts are pretty well known for their strong zoning and keep away tools. Like, for example, their obvious special moves, their really solid projectiles, and they're pretty much the signature aspects of these characters as really good at spacing and holding it neutral. But their disadvantage state is definitely something interesting. But they do have several tools for ledge trapping, like holy water or forward tilt, as their forward smashes even are effective at beating recoveries. But they suck against characters that can break through their defensive attributes because they lack a lot of defensive tools. They can also use their aerials to keep characters away, and this also down special is a really good tool for keeping opponents away on the ground as it stays very low and it can be used as an anti-airing tool. How overall the Belmonts are really effective at controlling the pace of the match, but however they are equipped with a multitude of bad weaknesses. Their disadvantage state is actually some of the worst in the whole game, due to them not having a single viable combo breaker with the exception of their down air, which you don't actually want to use because most people are going to predict this tool as it is a dive kick. They also have some of the worst recoveries in the game, even provided with their very little horizontal distance and aerial drift that they have with it. It's really not saying much for their character. So they are consistently edge guarded off stage by a lot of the other characters, and the Belmonts are definitely formidable at zoning and doing what they're made to do, but opponents who break past their disadvantage state and just be aggressive tend to shut them down rather easily because of their poor defensive game. The characters that were introduced tended to outclass them. A lot of the other zoners in the game have way better results and much stronger player bases, so Simon and Ritcher are heavily outclassed by many characters in the cast. Overall, Simon's strengths and weaknesses have been largely kept intact, unfortunately. They didn't really change the character all that much, and the cast between both these characters. And when the game initially released, Richter and Simon's attacks attracted interest due to their unique attributes, like including extremely long range and also powerful projectiles that were really good at ledge trapping. Many players initially viewed the Belmonts as a solid high tier character or even a top tier, but because of the spacing and zoning problems and also just their really bad defensive game, this wouldn't last long. But they would have some interesting counterpicks against certain characters, like for example Almar, who actually struggled against these characters because of their zoning tools shutting him down. They had a strong representative in the early game as well, so the highest level, and they did get some early success in the early months of Smash Ultimate, occasionally being picked up as a secondary, but however their weaknesses were soon discovered and perhaps just too significant to overcome. Most notably their poor recovery, many mediocre ways of escaping out of pressure, and also they just suffered from significant KO inconsistencies and mediocre frame data. They are really sluggish and slow characters, so a lot of those more nimble characters in the cast that are smaller than them can avoid their projectiles and shut them down rather easily. And also, why would you use Simon and Richter when Steve exists? I mean, Steve is like literally what Richter and Simon would love to be in a different world, because Steve does not have a lot of the same issues that obviously Richter and Simon do, and the Belmonts want to space. They want to have as much stage control as a lot of the other zoners in the cast, but they're just way too slow and their mobility is not good at all. So yeah, the Belmonts also received some buffs during the balance patches, but they just weren't enough to really fix the overall glaring problems behind these two characters, ultimately leaving them placed at just being just out of the low tier a lot of the times. With their weaknesses continuing, they continue to drop even further. to 79th on the most recent tier list. We've all seen it, we all know when Smash games first come out, there's characters that are initially seen as, oh my god, this is a really good character, and then overnight, a couple Ballads patches later, they might fall off completely, or it might be a slow, gradual decline. And that's kind of how I feel about Simon and Ritcher. Is they had a really high spike when the game first came out, where people were really excited to play them, and they had a lot of memes tied to their just overall identity. We've seen what Ritcher and Simon Main's controllers look like, okay? We've seen what their controllers look like. We know they love the B button, we get it. If you've seen their moveset, even just a couple minutes of their gameplay, you're gonna know that they are really held down by these attacks. They're a big part of their moveset. Obviously being the axe, being the neutral B, their cross being the side B, and obviously holy water, which is, you know, this. And we've all seen just how good they are at controlling neutral. That is one of the key strengths of the character is, yeah, doing this, baby. So that's why they're usually seen as kind of a meme when it comes to their special moves, because they really need to use these tools all the time to keep characters away and to set up in their more powerful tools in their kit, like for example their aerials or their smash attacks. And they are really solid at ledge trapping and holding down pressure. They do have quite a few weaknesses as well, which I definitely want to go over in this video because they're pretty interesting to see. And also you could definitely argue that with the archetype that Simon and Ritcher are trying to go for is just, they're not hitting it, unfortunately. There's so many other characters that do way better at what they're trying to do, and they don't have as many weaknesses as them. I mean, there's so many zoners in the game, it's very obvious who these characters are. So just keep that in mind when it comes to Simon and Ritcher. In a future Smash game, it would be really interesting to see if maybe they would potentially get faster, or they would actually have a more optimal moveset. Their defensive attributes are pretty bad, and I think this is the aspect of the character that I would love to see change the most. Maybe make their neutral air really fast or something, where they can escape out of pressure. A lot of characters have stuff like that in previous Smash games. Maybe they have just a really easy grab combo that they can do to try to at least make them somewhat rewarding when they actually when a character actually breaks their distance and beats their neutral option. But that's the characters. Unfortunately, they're just compounded by their really terrible results because no one really wants to deal with a character that has one of the worst recoveries in the game, even though they have multiple recovery options, and they're really sluggish and slow. I'm sorry, it's so slow. And why be weighed down by a character like this? Any other projectile zoner in the cast could really do what the Belmonts are trying to do, but way better, and they don't have as many weaknesses. So that's unfortunately the Ballad of Simon and Ritcher. When they were actually introduced in the game, it was a really cool moment to see that trailer. It was probably one of my favorite trailers actually for Smash Ultimate, but unfortunately, competitively, yeah, they have quite a bit of problems to say the least. Alright you guys, that is the video. Thank you guys for watching. You are the best. Appreciate you guys. There's channel memberships if you guys want to get videos early, and there's also a Discord if you guys want to join that. I appreciate you. And also make sure to subscribe. Also, if you're not subscribed, make sure you're subscribed. Alright? Thank you. Take care. Peace.